Throughout history, mortals have revered gods as untouchable beings, far beyond human reach. But what happens when that reverence is replaced by sheer brutality? In some ancient myths, the lines between human and divine are violently shattered. Take, for example, the tale of Tydeus, the warrior from Greek myth. During the Battle of Thebes, Tydeus did something so gruesome it horrified even the gods themselves. After defeating the godly son Melanippus, Tydeus cracked open his skull and, in a bloodthirsty frenzy, devoured his brains. The goddess Athena, ready to grant him immortality, recoiled in disgust. The act was too brutal, too savage, even for a god. In today's exploration, we delve into the stories where mortals not only challenge the gods, but violently tear them down, where divine power meets mortal fury. From the brutal slaying of demigods to the crucifixion of the divine, these are the moments where gods fall to human hands. In the annals of ancient myth, these violent acts aren't rare. They serve as a reminder of the fragility of even the most powerful beings in the face of human rage and ambition. Tydeus may have horrified the gods, but his story is just the beginning. Mortals, driven by anger, desperation, or destiny, have confronted gods in ways that still shock us today. But let us not stop at Greek myth. Throughout the world, we find similar stories, tales where the divine meets its demise at the hands of humans or human-like figures, often in acts of betrayal or raw violence. Our next tale brings us to ancient Egypt, where the mighty Osiris, the god of the afterlife, was betrayed and dismembered by his own brother, Set. In one of the most brutal acts of fratricide in myth, Set trapped Osiris in a coffin and cast him into the Nile, only to later cut his body into pieces. While this was not a straightforward battle, the violent destruction of Osiris represents a deep, primal jealousy that even gods could not escape. Osiris was eventually pieced back together by his wife, Isis. But the damage had been done. He could no longer reign over the living, and was instead condemned to rule over the dead. Osiris's death and resurrection symbolized not just the fall of a god, but the transformation that follows violent upheaval. In this story, as in many others, we see that gods, though immortal, are far from invincible when confronted with human or divine jealousy and violence. Next, we move to another Greek tale, but this time involving a hero, one of the most famous of all, Hercules. Known for his immense strength, Hercules was not only a protector of the mortal realm, but also a force of brutal violence. In his many battles he crossed paths with gods and their kin alike. In one famous story, Hercules fought and killed Cycnus, the son of Ares, the god of war. But the tale didn't end there. Enraged, Ares himself descended to fight Hercules. What happened next is extraordinary. A mortal, albeit a demigod, stood his ground against the god of war. In some versions, Hercules even bests Ares, showing that raw power, when wielded by a mortal, can challenge even the gods themselves. Hercules is a figure who straddles the line between man and god, but in these moments he reminds us that gods too can bleed, especially when confronted with the sheer, relentless force of human will. From the sands of Egypt and the battlefields of Greece, we now travel to the ancient Maya, where the theme of god-slaying takes a different yet no less brutal form. The hero twins, Hunahpu and Exbalanque, descend into the depths of the underworld, Xibalba, to face the gods of death in a deadly game of skill, deception, and violence. The gods of Xibalba, known for their cruelty and trickery, did not expect the twins to challenge their authority. After defeating them in their own game, Hunahpu and Exbalanque used cunning and violence to bring about their demise. In a spectacular act of defiance, they decapitated the lords of death, toppling the gods of the underworld and restoring balance to the world above. Here, in Mayan mythology, the mortals rise not through brute force, but through cunning, using their intellect to overthrow gods who seemed untouchable. While many of these tales focus on violent rebellion and power, one of the most well-known stories of god-killing comes from the heart of Christianity, in an act that is both violent and sacrificial, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. In this story, Jesus, believed by Christians to be both fully man and fully divine, is condemned to die by human hands. Crucifixion, a brutal and excruciating punishment, was not the act of a hero overcoming a god, but humanity turning against its own Saviour. Here, the killing of God isn't a story of conquest, but one of profound sacrifice. Yet, unlike other myths of deicide, this death is not final. According to Christian belief, Jesus rose again 3 days later, conquering death itself. His death, while violent, was not the end of the divine, but a passage to redemption. From physical battles against the gods, we move into the realm of thought, into the 19th century, where Friedrich Nietzsche proclaimed that God is dead. Nietzsche wasn't speaking of literal gods being slain by mortals, but rather the death of the concept of God in the minds of men. As humanity progressed, Nietzsche observed a world where religion had begun to lose its grip, and the divine no longer held the same power over human life and morality. This killing of God was not an act of violence, but one of intellectual liberation, or, as Nietzsche saw it, an existential crisis. Without God, humanity was left to face the void alone, and the question of meaning and morality became one for humans to answer themselves. In many ways, Nietzsche's declaration of deicide was more frightening than the myths of blood and betrayal. It was the death of certainty, leaving only chaos and freedom in its wake. And so, our journey brings us to the gods who embody destruction themselves. In Hindu mythology, Shiva is known as the Destroyer, one of the most powerful deities in the pantheon. Unlike the other gods we've discussed, Shiva's role is not to fight against destruction, but to bring it. Shiva's dance, the Tandava, is a cosmic performance that destroys the universe, only to allow for its rebirth. In this sense, Shiva does not fall to mortal hands, but embodies the cycle of creation and destruction that is central to life itself. The death of a god, in this case, is not a tragic event, but a necessary part of the universe's eternal rhythm. Here, the act of killing God is not rebellion, but part of a divine plan, a reminder that even destruction has its place in the grand scheme of existence. And so, we find that across time and cultures, the idea of killing gods has shaped myths, histories, and even philosophies. From the brutal violence of Tydeus to the sacrificial death of Christ, to the intellectual rebellion of Nietzsche, these stories reveal a deep human fascination with challenging the divine. In each of these tales, the fall of gods speaks to something more than just power or brutality. It reflects our desire to understand, to challenge, and at times to conquer the forces that govern us. If this journey into the world of myth and history has sparked your curiosity, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel as we continue to explore the stories that have shaped human culture and consciousness. Until next time, I bid you farewell and invite you to reflect on the ways in which humanity has confronted the divine and what that means for us today. I bid you good night. May your thoughts wander through the myths and mysteries of the past, and may tomorrow bring new stories to explore. Until next time, sleep well.